I have had way too much to drink to be doing this video, but the show must go on. Metal never sleeps. And this week, we have a brand new album from the band Halestorm, their sixth studio album, Everest. And the question on your mind, will Everest take us to new heights, to the top of the mountain? Or is it going to be a huge disappointment and drop us down into the valley of mediocrity? Find out next. Welcome, metal enthusiasts, to a rum-soaked edition of the Metal Dude Abides. Tonight, we are going to be taking a look at the brand new Halestorm album, Everest. But before we get to the new album, let's do a little bit of a history review of the relationship between the Metal Dude and Halestorm. And it all starts way back in 2009 when I bought myself a brand new truck. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're saying, Metal Dude, what does this have to do with a new truck? Well, let me tell you. Up until that point, for the most part, I listened to music on CDs, but when I bought my brand new truck, it had satellite radio. And while the first few channels that I gravitated to, Ozzy's Boneyard and Hair Nation, I believe were the names of them, sooner or later I started kind of creeping into some newer music, liquid metal, and in particular, Octane. What a sensational channel. And one day I'm driving to work and I hear it. The voice of an angel, Lizzie Hale, Halestorm, with a song called It's Not You. Well, I rushed into the office and I wrote down the name of the band before I forgot and started doing all my explorations, went out and bought their self-titled LP, and I loved it. Fell in love with Halestorm from day one. Well, it wasn't too much later that they put out the epic, the opus, maybe their greatest album of all time, The Strange Case of. If you are familiar with that album, we're not going to go through all the hits because we're not talking about that album, but it is a perfect album. I loved every track on it. Getting in on the ground floor of Halestorm, I really feel like I've discovered something. Well, the next album comes out, Into the Wildlife. And we always keep it 100% here. I was very disappointed in that album. Didn't really care for it much. Yeah, there was a couple of good songs here and there, but for the most part, I thought it was a bit of a snoozer. Next album comes out, Vicious. Like the name of the album, but once again, I found that there was a couple of songs that I liked, but for the most part, just wasn't my cup of tea. And by the time they got to Back from the Dead, I had completely lost interest in Halestorm. And it's just one of those bands you think to yourself, well, we will always have The Strange Case of. We'll always have that great summer where we were jamming out to that wonderful album way back in the day. Well, fast forward a few years and just a few months back, and I just happened to notice that Halestorm has a new single. Darkness Always Wins. So I said, for old time's sake, I'll put it on. And sure enough, I loved it. And then Everest came out. And then. So they put out 3 singles for this album. And I loved every one. And I'm starting to think to myself, am I really going to love the new Halestorm album? Well, it just dropped last Thursday. And I got to tell you, what I'm about to say seemed unimaginable just a few months ago. This might be the absolute best Halestorm album of all time. I know that's hyperbole. Let's not oversell it. It's at least in the ballpark of Strange Case of. Like, this is right up there with the absolute best Halestorm has ever done. So let's talk about why this album is so good. Even after I stopped really listening to Halestorm albums, whenever they would come to town, I'd go to see them live. And there's a reason for that. Halestorm is a better band live than they are in the studio. And I say that as a great compliment. You really know a band is talented when they can actually knock it out of the park live. And Halestorm is one of those bands. And one of the reasons that they are so much better live is because, well, let's put it to you this way. Whenever you are trying to break through, you always have this struggle between pop sensibilities and that hard rock heavy metal. Pop sensibilities mean you polish up, you smooth out, you come in, you come out. It's a quick song, lots of production, lots of polish. But let's be honest, most heavy metal is not benefited from too much polish, too much production. It feeds off of raw energy. The second thing is when you start trying to make hit songs, pop music focuses almost entirely on the singer. And so a lot of the studio music that Halestorm produces focuses solely, in my opinion, on Lzzy Hale. And there's nothing wrong with that approach. Lzzy Hale is a once-in-a-generation talent, and her vocal performances are legendary. But once again, that is how you make pop music. Hard rock and heavy metal need great guitars, great drums, great music in the background. So when you see Halestorm live, the band kind of starts to kick in a little bit. They get a little bit more of the spotlight, and it really perks up their music quite a bit. So let's talk about the band. First, on drums, Lizzy's little brother, R.J. Hale, a very good drummer in his own right. Secondly, on guitar, you got Joe Hottinger. Again, a very subtle person on the studio, but you see him live. This dude's got some chops. And finally, bassist Josh Smith. This album is really good because these three members of the band are featured much more prominently. Yeah, you still get Lizzy's great vocals, but now you get a taste of what the band's capable of. But there's one more reason why this album is sensational. I think one of the other factors that really hurts the longevity of rock and metal bands is fame and fortune. One of the things that makes heavy metal great is rage. One of the things that makes heavy metal great is anguish. The desire to make it, to crawl out and become successful. That drive, that desire, those are the things that make heavy metal great. And sometimes when a band achieves that success, it's hard to generate that kind of anguish, rage, or desire. You're satisfied. You've made it. You're happy. And it makes for absolute crap music because now you're trying to come off with an attitude. You're trying to play with an edge. But you've got contentment written all over your songs. Now, I don't know if that's the case with Halestorm or not, but one thing is I would say that their music, it seemed like they were playing rock band instead of really being a rock band. Writing for success, not writing from personal experience. Now, this album completely goes the other direction. Lzzy Hale rips off that cheap veneer and exposes an emotionally charged performance like I have not seen in a long time. This is heartfelt emotion to the point, at one point I started to ask myself, should someone go check on Lzzy? Because she's dealing with a lot of shit here, and she's exposing all of that to us. And it is beautiful, it is dark, and it is an emotional punch to the gut. Think about the success Alanis Morissette had way back in the day when she put out those emotionally charged, hate-filled songs where she was talking about bad relationships. Well, Lzzy Hale takes that and takes it to 11. If you had any doubts of what this album was going to be like, the first clue is the album cover itself. One of my favorite movies is a movie called Good Will Hunting. Let me set up the scene for you. Matt Damon is a genius, but he's also a psychopath. He does not play well with others, but he's a genius. So this college professor guy wants to untap all of this genius, but he knows that somehow he's got to get this fella to come along with the program. So he starts sending him to these psychiatrists, and Matt Damon is like a master manipulator and can manipulate the psychiatrists into a rage or embarrassment or whatever the case may be. So he finally ends up meeting his match with the psychiatrist played by Robin Williams. Bearded Robin Williams movies are always the best, right? So Matt Damon's looking for a angle to get to Robin Williams to get this psychiatrist off his case. And so he comes up with this, he finds this picture that was painted on the wall. And he can tell by the tones of it, the colors that Robin Williams used, that there's a lot of anger and sadness just bursting inside of Robin Williams. And so after a little bit of prodding and prying, he uncovers the fact that Robin Williams' wife had tragically died many years ago, and Robin Williams was still holding on to all that pain. It's a powerful scene. If you've never seen that movie, it won Academy Awards for a reason. It really is very good. But that leads me to this album cover. When I heard that they were putting out a new album called Everest, I expected this big inspirational, bright blue skies, height, Julie Andrews parading the Sound of Music, that sort of thing, right? But instead, look at the cover of this album. It's a staircase down. It's the depths of despair. It's depths of the valley. It's a demon's face looming in the background, and a gray, loveless, barren landscape. Right off the bat, you're like, this is not going to be inspirational. This is going to be tragic. This is going to be very dark. How dark? Let's go track by track and talk about the themes that run throughout this album. All right, buckle up. The emotional gut punch is about to begin. It begins right away in track 1 with the opening track, Fallen Star. Now, to my earlier point, right away, you understand that this is going to be a little bit different because you have a great, powerful opening with Joe Hottinger having an excellent riff to get this thing going. I love a good album opener. I love a good, fast and powerful one. This one fits the bill. Now, on to the topic at hand, the emotional gut punch piece of this. So this song is about hurting someone in a relationship, hurting someone you love deeply to the point it ends that relationship, and the guilt that you feel afterwards. Because not only do you feel terrible about hurting someone you truly love, but now it's over. There's no going back. There's no time machine. There's no way to fix it. They're gone. And you're left with the guilt and that what if, what could have been. You had something that you truly loved and you ruined it. You spoiled it. You let it go. Now you've got to live with that the rest of your life. We focus so much on the person that is hurt in that situation, but being the person who does the hurting, it's no easy piece of cake either. Now, there's a point in this song where Lizzie Hale finally just says, kick it, and they just break into this jam. And I guess maybe this is that point where you realize that there's no putting the genie back in the bottle and you've got to move on with your life. Maybe this last little jamming part of the song is that catharsis that comes from knowing there's no changing the past. Whatever happened was terrible, but maybe it's time to move on. This song does that in a beautiful way with a nice, big, heavy jam to close the song. Okay, this album is very dark, but there are some inspirational moments, even if they are a bit edgy. The second song is the title track, Everest. This was also the second single that they released, and I would say it takes a little bit of a step backwards in tone to a little softer than the opening track. And this song is basically about overcoming and never giving up. Even when the situation is insurmountable, it's Everest, man. It is one of the biggest things you'll ever try to tackle in your life. But death is preferable than giving up. So again, that's inspirational, right? You never want to quit. You always want to keep going, but to the point of you'd rather die than to quit. Gets a little bit dark, a little bit edgy, but this is a very good, more melodic track. Again, one of the big singles off this album, and it is an excellent job done here by Lizzie Hale, who does some great vocals on this one. Another great song, Everest. Whenever I do album reviews, I tell you my favorite songs on the album, and I always at least pick out one song where I say, probably my least favorite song. And here it is, track number 3, Shiver. This is, some people call the stalking song. This is a song about being obsessed with a relationship where the other person's moved on. They want nothing more to do with it, but you refuse to give up, even though it is damaging you badly to keep coming back. At one point, she's talking about the scars on her heart. They're just being ripped open every time. Sometimes it's just, we just got through talking about the song before, Never Give Up, die before you would give up, right? But there is a situation in a relationship when the other person's not interested and you've got to let it go. You can't just keep exposing yourself and getting hurt over and over again. That obsession is unhealthy, and it's really put to music beautifully in track 3, Shiver. From my least favorite track on the album to maybe one of my favorites, Like a Woman Can. Oh boy, this one really is sensational. It starts off great with a piano interlude, and you know you're going to be in for something special when Lizzie breaks out the piano. It just adds a little bit of an emotional atmosphere to the song, and Lizzie's vocals on this particular song are off the charts. I think this is her best vocal performance on the entire album. Now, what's this song about? Well, once again, it's not going well in the romance department. And there's a lot of frustration as Lizzie is contemplating why this dude can't love her like a woman can, like she loves him. Sometimes I feel bad for women sometimes because we sometimes can't get as emotional as they want us to be. We don't have that sensitive side to us. And this is that frustration of her giving everything into this relationship, and this dude just, he can't go there. It's just not happening. And, the relationship has ended, and she's just wondering why in the world could this dude not love her like she loved him. Oof. This one is brutal. And I think we've all been in relationships where you are much more into the situation than the other person, and it can be, frustrating and very hurtful. Earlier in the video, I was talking about how the first time I heard Darkness Always Wins, I was intrigued by the new Halestorm album. Really got my attention. But it wasn't until their third single release, Rain Your Blood on Me, that I started to get an inkling that this album might be special. Oh boy, this album is slow, it's heavy, it's gloomy, with these rage vocals from Lizzie Hale. And why is she so upset? Well, this song is about the hypocrisy and double standards that are thrown at women, thrown at Lizzie. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. No matter what I do, you're going to criticize me. No matter what I do, you're going to say I'm wrong. There's a lot of that goes on in this world, and I'm telling you, Lizzie has a lot of anger towards it, a lot of frustration for it, and she pours it out here. And even though this is a really slow, grinding, doomy song, right after the bridge, it kicks into this whole new gear. And RJ and the team just take it to a whole new gear and really kind of finishes it off with a flurry. This is one of my favorite songs on the entire album. Track 4, Like a Woman Can. Track 5, Rain Your Blood on Me. And track 6, Darkness Always Wins. This stretch of the album is special. If you are thinking, well, I don't know, maybe I'll try this album, that opening track is great. But I would put your attention right here. If you're just going to listen to a few songs, this stretch is the absolute best stretch on the entire album. We've talked a lot about this song, Darkness Always Wins. It is an instant classic, one of my favorite Halestorm songs of all time already. Now, I'm assuming that, again, this is one of those darker themes of, the inevitability of death, right? No matter what you do, no matter how many times you take your vitamins, no matter how much, people stick themselves in hyperbolic chambers, whatever it is, right? Death comes for us all. Darkness always wins. Again, there's that frustration that seeps through in this song. But it's done with a bit of a lighter touch. It is dark themed, but it is a little lighter than some of the other darker songs on this album. One of the absolute best. Again, go check this stretch of the album out. You will be blown away. Speaking of mortality, track 7, Gather the Lambs, is once again about facing death. It's about the end of the world. It's the apocalypse. Shit is about to go down. But even though this is a darker song, there's a little bit of an inspirational side to it, because what Lizzie sings about here is, as long as she's in your arms, as long as you're together, the end of the world may come, but it'll be all right. You can face it together. Kind of a beautiful sentiment in the middle of all these relationships that have gone south and sour. This one is sticking together through thick and thin. Really do like this album. Also, Mr. Joe Hottinger, this song has my favorite guitar solo of any track on the album. After 7 tracks of smoldering intensity, this album explodes with rage, fury, and revenge. And it's a much-needed tone change after all of that melancholy, sadness, and hurt that's been building throughout the whole album. The band also really plays excellently through here. RJ's drumming through this stretch is excellent. Joe has some of the best riffs and solos on the entire album. But the theme of these 4 songs is basically the post-breakup after effects. After all the hurt, after the intensity of the breakups, you're still in a bad place. But the other person, meanwhile, has moved on. They've got a new life. Brand new, shiny life, and maybe they've even entered into a relationship, and they seem happy. Ugh. That jealousy starts to eat at you, and you start to become broken. You start to be feeling like you're on the edge of a nervous breakdown. And quite frankly, you would do just about anything to escape the loneliness. At this point, if you, the listener of this album, are not emotionally drained, you've just not been paying attention. Luckily for us, we get one more palate cleanse. The final song is next. The album closes on the song, How Will You Remember Me? And this song reminds me, again going back to the Strange Case of album, to the album closer there, Here's to Us. It's kind of got the same vibe. And here's the interesting part. After 11 songs just pulling on your heartstrings, this album says, things were rough, things were bad. I'm not really entirely happy about the way it ended. But you know what? I have my memories. We had our good times. You know what? I'm going to just focus on that. I'm going to put to bed my bitterness. I'm going to put to bed my jealousy. I'm going to put to bed my anger. And I'm just going to remember the good times. Kind of, again, a cathartic ending to this album. A much more uplifting beat. Like I said, those first 11 songs are all just gut punch, gut punch, gut punch. And here, the last track is like, I think I'm going to get over this. I think I'm going to move on, and I think I'm going to be okay. What a way to end the album. Let's close this bad boy up with my final thoughts. Whew. This was an emotional roller coaster. But make no mistake, this album is a masterpiece. And it's a masterpiece for a few reasons. Number one, Lzzy Hale's vocals are on point. The one thing about a vocalist is you always wonder how long can their voice hold up, especially one that puts it through the paces like Lizzy's. Wow, I can't believe it. Sounds just as good as it always has. 10 plus years into this career, she sounds great. The emotions that this album conveys. When she wants to sound angry, she sounds angry. When she wants to be sad or melancholy, it comes through. When she wants to invoke frustration and regret, it just drips with those emotions. Tour de force. Great, great performance by Lzzy Hale. We talked about it. I think this is Joe Hottinger's best album by far. And let's face it, RJ has a very good performance as well. He has had some, the drumming on Halestorm albums is always really pretty good, but this one also. Don't skip past RJ's work on this album. My favorite tracks on there, the opener. Fallen Star is a great heavy opener. Like a Woman Can, again, that's the song, man. You want to talk about frustration and regret just dripping from Lizzy's vocals. It's a beautiful song. I talked about that one stretch between there and Darkness Always Wins. Beautiful stuff. On the back side of the album, I gave you everything. Also very, very good. Overall, this, I think, is going to be one of those albums that I'm just as surprised as many of you probably are. I think is going to be in contention for my year-end top 10, top 20 album list. It's that good, folks. Halestorm is back, and I couldn't be happier. I had, their last album was called Back from the Dead. No. This album is Back from the Dead. I had completely dropped them off my radar. I am so pleasantly surprised. Halestorm's Everest, one of the best albums of 2025.